Hello and welcome to Tech Talk. I'm Graham Hughes. Today we're going to be looking at the company Tesla. Now Tesla is an amazing technology company, and what they've been able to accomplish in the few decades that they've been in business is really incredible. But today we're looking particularly at the automotive division. And for better or worse, that automotive division has been in the news an awful lot lately, and sometimes for not very good reasons. So in this video, we're looking at the successes that Tesla has enjoyed, what created those successes, and what the challenges are on the road ahead. Now for me, when I look at the Tesla automotive division, I see a moment of real peril for the company. So the question is, are Tesla automobiles going to be around for the long haul? Or is this a business that's in serious trouble and might not succeed? We're going to be addressing those questions right here, right now on Tech Talk. So great question is, what are Tesla's challenges that are causing it to be a moment of peril for the company today? Well, there's four primary ones that we'll go through. The first one is with the Cybertruck. Now, Cybertruck has been a real problem. Currently, they're only selling about 5,000 Cybertrucks around the world every quarter. That is a low sales number for what's supposed to be a mass-produced vehicle. And of course, the problem is Cybertruck didn't end up being exactly what Elon Musk promised when Cybertruck was first proposed. For one thing, Elon Musk said the Cybertruck would be priced around $40,000 US when it was released to the public, and ended up being about double that. So it certainly wasn't an affordable truck like he first promised. Now, when it did come out, Cybertruck has had some quality control issues. There's been, that I'm aware of, about 8 recalls on the Cybertruck, some for serious safety issues, others for more quality control issues. But that's had an impact on owners that feel that 8 recalls in the short time that Cybertruck's been selling is far too many. Now, in places like Europe, they've had some real safety concerns with Cybertruck due to some of the things that happen with the recalls, but also due to the size of thing. Cybertruck is huge, and it's not really appropriate for European roads. So European lawmakers have raised a lot of concerns about the Cybertruck, and that has led to restrictions on both its sales and use in parts of Europe. So that has further hampered sales. Now, all of this comes on the back of the fact that, at least by one analyst estimate, Tesla spent about $900 million developing and tooling up for Cybertruck. So $900 million is a lot of money to spend, and you need to sell a lot of Cybertrucks to recoup that investment back. But the problem is, again, they're only selling 5,000 trucks globally, which is nowhere near enough. And that has had the add-on effect of depressing the prices of used Cybertrucks. Anybody that's trying to get rid of a Cybertruck now, those things are sitting on used car lots for a long time, and they're seeing steep pricing discounts. That doesn't help the sales of new Cybertrucks because people don't want a vehicle that's going to depreciate so rapidly. So here's the problem. Tesla spent $900 million on the Cybertruck. They promised an inexpensive truck that everybody would want, that would be groundbreaking. And what they really ended up with is a truck that most people think is, well, kind of ugly, too expensive, prone to breaking down, and at the end of the day, nobody really wants it. So it wasn't a good investment for Tesla, and it's dragging the company down in terms of its sales. Now, the second challenge that Tesla is having right now is the politics of its founder and spokesperson, really, Elon Musk. I know Tesla's a public company, obviously, and there's lots of people that work there, but Elon Musk still is the figurehead, and he's really the guy that drives Tesla forward. Now, for better or worse, he decided to get into politics in the last couple of years. And the thing about today's political environment is, as soon as you get widely involved in politics and you make your political opinions known, there's a good chance you're going to alienate a huge part of the population. And of course, we've seen that with Tesla. They've had incidents of people burning Teslas, attacking Tesla dealerships and Tesla employees. There's been all kinds of problems come out because people want to protest Musk's political views. Now, it's totally his right to express those views for sure, but anytime a company or a company figurehead gets involved in politics, you have that risk of alienating a big part of the public. And now what we're seeing is the part of the public that was alienated by that, they don't want to buy Tesla products. So his decision to get into politics really shrunk the available market for what he's trying to sell, which from a sales standpoint is kind of a big problem. Now, the third problem that Elon Musk is facing is the Chinese. The Chinese have gone all in on electric vehicles, and they're able to build vehicles of similar or even better quality for a whole lot less money. The days of saying, oh, well, something's built in China and therefore it's junk are long over. The Chinese are all over this, and they build very, very good cars. And reviews I've seen on cars from like BYD, they're compared to Volkswagen very favorably. In some cases, they're considered a much better car. Now, it's true, in North America, we don't really experience these Chinese vehicles. We're not really alert to them. But that's because both in Canada and the United States, there's a 100% tariff. Well, at least in Canada, it's 100%. I know in the States, it's very, very high. But the tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles are such that it prevents them from being sold in North America, so we don't see them. But everywhere else in the world, or in a lot of places in the world, like Australia, Asia, and Europe, these Chinese electric vehicles are selling like hotcakes. They're very popular because they're inexpensive and they're well made. And that's eating into Tesla's global sales in a big way. So Chinese EVs are definitely a big problem. Now, the fourth problem that Tesla is having, and it's kind of similar to the previous one, is that literally every other manufacturer in the world is getting on board with electric vehicles. Toyota, Ford, Hyundai, Volkswagen, they've all got their electric models. And these are companies that have been building cars for, in some cases, more than a century. They have very, very deep supply chains. They have very, very deep engineering experience. They have great financial capacity. They have been building cars for forever, much, much longer than Tesla has. So now that they've decided to go into electric cars, they're running away with it as well. They're building cars that are just as good. And so now Tesla is facing all kinds of new competition. Now, because of these four challenges that are facing Tesla, their market share globally is declining. If we take a look at this chart from their second quarter 2025 financial statement, we can see that their market share for electric vehicles started declining in 2023 and has been picking up speed since then. So this chart is not looking good for Tesla because they're losing market share to other manufacturers. Now, to really understand the challenges that Tesla is facing now and why they're so significant to the company, we really need to take a look at what made Tesla successful in the past in the first place. How did they get to be the big company where they are now? And I'll tell you, Tesla's development from a tiny little manufacturer of a single electric roadster to the enormous company they are today, nobody could have predicted that happening. Let's talk about why that is. In looking at what's made Tesla so successful in the first place, we really have to acknowledge this is a very unlikely success story. See, Tesla was formed, of course, in the United States, which is a very capitalist country. Capitalism rules the day there. And every economic model has good strengths and some weaknesses. And in the case of capitalism, one of the weaknesses is that over time, industries tend toward consolidation. The industries that are successful, the ones that build a better mousetrap, tend to get more and more powerful, and then they squelch down smaller competition. It's just the way it's always been. It's kind of how the system works. There's nothing wrong with that. We certainly have seen this in the car industry in the United States. If you look at the website Auto Roundup, according to them, between the year 1900 and 1912, there was about 2,000 companies engaged in the automotive manufacturing business in the United States. Now, by 1929, there were just 98 companies involved in auto manufacturing. And by the start of the 1940s, the big three, that's Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, were responsible for about 90% of all auto manufacturing. So from 1900 to 1940, basically, you went from 2,000 companies to three that dominated the industry. Now, this continued on, and by the 1960s, it was generally considered impossible for a startup automotive manufacturer to find success in the United States. And that was because of the dominance of the big three. The big three were so tightly entwined with their suppliers and with the automotive industry as a whole that they had the power to kind of force out smaller upstarts that might want to try to start a new company. So that's why it's always been so hard to have a new car company start in the US, is because of the market dominance of these three behemoths. Now, in this environment, Tesla kind of broke the mold, because what they decided they were going to do is they were going to build something that nobody else was interested in, and that is all electric cars. The time that Tesla came on the scene, nobody really cared about all electric cars. Nobody thought that there was even a market for it. Now, I know some people are going to argue with me on this. They're going to say, yeah, but wait, in 1996, GM had the EV1. That's true, they did. They brought out the EV1, but let's face it, it was never a serious attempt at building an electric car. The thing was ugly, it was dull, it was slow, it was heavy, it had terrible range, It wasn't a practical car at all. They flogged a few of these things. I think they put them on leases, and then they canceled the project because there was just no hope this thing was going to be either, popular or profitable. Now, the other electric car that we had about that time was the Nissan Leaf, which came out in 2010. The Leaf was kind of similar to the EV1 in some ways in that it was heavy, it was boring, it had limited range, it was slow. The big one for them, though, was the batteries were notoriously unreliable. So again, the first version of the Nissan Leaf, when it came out, people weren't really interested in, and it didn't sell well. It was sort of a half-baked product that never really worked too well. Now, in this environment, Tesla came out with its very first car, the Tesla Roadster, which was based on a Lotus chassis. So it was a chassis that was already known, was a good chassis, it was a quality product. And what Tesla did was they did something nobody else had even tried to do. They made a car, first of all, that was attractive. They made a car that performed well. It was actually fun to drive. And the big thing was it actually had useful range. The first Roadster could go 244 miles on a charge. It was the first and only car at the time that had a range over 200 miles. So this was a car that for the first time it was all electric and people could see themselves actually using it. Now, every subsequent model that Tesla brought out, whether it was the X, the Y, the 3, whatever it was, they followed a similar pattern. They were practical, they were reasonably affordable. Certainly you had to be sort of in that middle or upper middle class range, but they were reasonably affordable and they were fun to drive. So these were cars that people could actually see themselves using and enjoying, even though they were all electric. And of course, at that time, Tesla was really capturing the zeitgeist of the moment. Environmental concerns were on the rise. People were becoming more aware of global warming, which then became climate change. It became sort of the environmental and political movement of the time. And Tesla fit perfectly into that. And so as governments were becoming more and more sensitive about emissions and about the state of the climate, they were starting to look at the electric car as a solution for what they were seeing as a looming problem. And so they started to pile on offering rebates for people that chose to buy electric cars, and they came out with electric vehicle mandates, both in Canada, the United States, and other countries. They started dictating that, a big percentage of vehicles sold by 2030 or 2035 had to be electric vehicles. In some cases, they were saying by those years they had to be all electric vehicles. So the real push was on from government through both rebates and through mandates requiring the industry to sell electric vehicles. The big push was on to make electric vehicles a thing, and not only to make them a thing, but to make them the dominant vehicle for sale in the marketplace. So this really changed all the market dynamics. And because Tesla had come out and was really the first building a practical, useful electric car that people wanted, they had a head start. When all these government policies came out, the first idea you'd think is, well, that's great for Tesla, because now people, they can get a rebate for buying a Tesla. And the government is telling people to buy electric cars. They're going to push the market into electric cars. That's got to be great for Tesla. But there were risks attached to that. Because those government moves, what it did is it made every other manufacturer start to look at electric cars and go, hey, we have to be involved in that. Because we're going to be forced to sell, in some cases, nothing but electric cars inside of 15 or 20 years, whatever it was. So we got to get into that business. And it was a business that prior to, they didn't really care about. Tesla had it as their own little niche, and suddenly all these other manufacturers are saying, hey, we got to get involved in this niche. That was a big, big sea change for Tesla. Tesla is no longer unique in this market where they were the only serious player. And the problem with that is when you look at companies like Ford, like Nissan, like Toyota, like Volkswagen, they've been making cars for more than a century. And they're very, very good at it. The thing about it is an electric car, although it's different than a car with an internal combustion engine, it's not wholly different. A lot of the fundamentals of building a chassis, a drivetrain, suspension, steering, and brakes are the similar or the same, one or the other. So when you look at these traditional manufacturers that have been building cars for over 100 years, they've got the research and design ability, they've got the economics, they've got the supply chains, and they've got the history to do a really, really good job on electric cars. And so you've got now all of these people coming in and they're really giving Tesla a run for their money. And that's the single biggest change that is causing challenges for Tesla as an automotive manufacturer. Is once what was their own little playground that they alone played in is now getting pretty crowded. And some people may push back on this and say, well, yeah, but Tesla is a big company on its own. Surely Volkswagen and Ford and whatnot, they don't have anything on Tesla. Tesla's huge. Look at their market capitalization, the value of their stocks. But market capitalization in this sense doesn't really count. What counts is how many cars do you make, because that speaks to the depth of your supply chains, the depth of your R&D, and your abilities as a manufacturer. So if we want to be real about it, let's take a look at some 2024 numbers. So in 2024, Toyota managed to manufacture 10.8 million vehicles. Volkswagen Group made 9 million vehicles, and Ford made 4.4 million vehicles. Now, against those numbers, Tesla only managed to produce 1.8 million vehicles. Now, I don't want to diminish what Tesla has done. I'm not saying, oh, Tesla's a scrappy little company, they haven't accomplished anything. They have. Like, what Tesla has accomplished in the face of all the opposition and all the challenges that they've had over the years is incredible. And you kind of got to hand it to Elon Musk, because he was the driving force behind all this. And a lot of it really is on his shoulders, that it was able to accomplish what it did in an environment when most people said that Tesla would never be successful. Let's face it, when Tesla started selling the Roadster, most people thought they'd be out of business within 5 or 10 years. Nobody really saw them getting to be this big. But now we have this moment of peril, because instead of playing in their own little pool, they've got all these other people that are right in there with them. They're much, much bigger manufacturers. They're much better funded. They're much more experienced. And they're doing now what Tesla's been doing. Now, there's one other thing that kind of comes into this discussion as well, and that is, well, all the environmental issues have been coming to the fore in the recent, most recent decades, in the 2010s, the 2020s, it's been a huge thing. Now we're seeing a little bit of change in attitude. Some people are starting to see the costs of fighting climate change as being untenable. We're seeing this in North America, we're seeing it in Europe, we're seeing it all over the world. The idea of switching to all-electric heating, all-electric vehicles, we're starting to understand that the costs for this are absolutely massive. And there's a lot of questions around whether or not those expenses are sustainable and whether they can be shouldered by governments indefinitely. So in just the last couple of years, what we've seen is rebate schemes for electric cars being either reduced or canceled entirely. Some of the regulatory credits that Tesla receives for making electric cars, those have been canceled or rolled back, so they're not getting as much money from government programs. There's a lot of pressure by the automotive industry to scale back EV mandates. This idea that every car sold in Canada or the United States by 2030, 2035 has to be an electric vehicle. Auto manufacturers are saying that's just not possible. We don't have the ability to do that. And furthermore, sales right now are showing that people aren't that interested in electric cars. We kind of thought there'd be this snowballing where more and more electric cars would be sold. But with the canceling of rebates in particular, we're seeing those sales soften, and auto manufacturers are saying there's no way for us to get to 100% EV sales in the time that governments want us to. So here's a big question around that. And that is, can Tesla maintain profitability without the government support that's been propping it out, without those regulatory credits they receive, and without people receiving the rebates that have been driving electric car sales to a certain degree? If government is pulling out of interfering in the electric vehicle market, and it's pulling away from inducing people to buy electric vehicles over internal combustion cars, in that environment, can Tesla remain profitable? Well, nobody really knows, because it's not really been tried. And when you combine that with the intense competition from other manufacturers, this is a huge unknown that is a kind of wait and see moment. But again, it's certainly a moment of peril for Tesla. With all that having been said, the question now is, what will it take to turn things around for Tesla? I showed you this chart from the Q2 2025 financial report for Tesla, showing how their market share has rolled over and is now starting to decline in most parts of the world. So what would it take to get them back on top? Well, to my mind, I think one of the problems that Tesla has is I don't think they can compete building what everybody else is building. When you look at electric cars from Ford, from Hyundai, from Volkswagen, and from others, what is it about Tesla that's really different? They look similar, they perform similar, they have similar range, they have similar quality. I don't see Teslas really standing head and shoulders from these other manufacturers. In addition, these other manufacturers have well-established sales programs and sales infrastructure that Tesla just doesn't have. I'm in Canada. I live in a city of about 1.3 million people. There's no Tesla dealer here. I can't leave my house and walk to a Tesla dealer and test drive a Model 3. It's not something I can do. I can, however, go up the street to my Ford dealer and test drive a Mustang Mach-E. So Tesla's they're on the back heel when it comes to competing against these major manufacturers with the product. What was Tesla's niche all-electric car product is no longer niche. All these other manufacturers have it, and I don't think that Tesla is really well positioned to compete with these other manufacturers basically making the same vehicle that they do. Tesla has to find a way to make itself unique again. And the only thing I see going on at Tesla that really makes it unique in the automotive side of things is its full self-driving technology. Elon Musk has dove into full self-driving technology more than most other manufacturers have. I mean, every manufacturer's got some interest, but Elon is really pushing hard on this, and probably the only people that are sort of more in tune with that side of things, or equally in tune with it, is Waymo. So that is a point of differentiation for Elon. If Tesla can bring out a full self-driving technology that is light years ahead of everybody else and makes it really possible to go from point A to point B without any human intervention, that's going to drive sales. That could be a differentiating factor. If that doesn't come to fruition, or if it doesn't come to fruition soon, I think what you're going to see is that Tesla is going to continue to lose market share as all these other manufacturers continue to make more and more electric vehicles, and people find out that those electric vehicles are very competitive with Tesla's model. And that brings up actually a really good question about Elon Musk himself, and that is Tesla really still Elon Musk's passion? When Tesla first came out, he was all about the electric car because he was going to develop cutting-edge technology. It was going to have range that nobody else had. It was going to have performance that nobody else had. And that was going to save the planet, save us from climate change. And he was going to be the guy to do it. And that's what drives Elon Musk. That's what he's interested in. He's interested in cutting-edge technology. He's interested in technology that, at least as far as he sees it, is a benefit to mankind. He wants to do big, bold things. He wants to be on that edge of exploration, whether it's AI, space travel, clean electric power, all these things. He wants to be right out there on the edge. And Tesla isn't that anymore. Tesla's not on the edge. It's just another car manufacturer making electric cars, along with, a dozen other manufacturers making roughly the same thing. And my guess is for Elon Musk, that's kind of boring. I don't think this is his passion. His passion is not to have just a boring old automotive manufacturing company like Volkswagen, like Ford, like Toyota, like Nissan, like all these other companies are doing. I think it's hard for me to imagine that Tesla as it stands now is catching a whole lot of his imagination. And I'm going to put a link down to Tesla's Master Plan Part 4. This is a document that came out not too long ago. And Tesla comes out with these master plans every now and then. It's kind of them looking forward to what the vision is for the company and where they see themselves going and how they're going to be a benefit to humanity. And when you look at the Master Plan Part 4, what is it heavy on? It's heavy on autonomous taxis. It's heavy on robots. It's heavy on clean energy. It's pretty quiet on the automotive side of things. There's not a lot of talk about groundbreaking new Tesla cars coming out or what their plans are for the future. So for me, I'm going to guess that Musk's heart is elsewhere. I think it's more in SpaceX. I think it's more in Grok, his artificial intelligence model. I think it's more in clean energy, things that are a lot more cutting edge and a lot more appealing to him. I just don't think that his heart is in the automotive division. And I think you're seeing that in the Tesla lineup. Because first of all, the Tesla Cybertruck was a flop. Let's face it, that thing is a dud. They spent way too much money on it. It's never going to recoup what they spent. But the rest of the Tesla lineup is kind of getting stale too. Like, there hasn't been a real significant refresh. There's not a lot of information out there about really exciting models in the pipeline. I just don't see the buzz at Tesla being around their automotive product. Yeah, it's around the robotics. Yeah, it's around the clean energy. The automotive side just seems to kind of be there. And I just don't know that that's really where Musk's heart is, and I don't know that that's really what the company's really driving hard on right now. So that said, here's a reality check. We often equate Tesla with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is Tesla, Tesla is Elon Musk. But that's not really true, because Tesla is a public company and it has shareholders that it has to answer to. It's not entirely Elon Musk's baby to do what he wants. Shareholders aren't going to prop up money-losing ventures forever. And I want to be really, really clear, the automotive division is not a money-losing venture. It makes lots of money for Tesla, brings in lots of revenue. It's by far their biggest division. But shareholders won't allow Musk to play around with money-losing projects and to tinker with his passions and then to ignore the money-making side of the company. Shareholders have an expectation of profit. That's what they want to see. And so that's kind of where the automotive division sort of fits in. It's no longer this bleeding edge technology, but it's kind of this boring manufacturing thing that everybody else is doing, but that also drives profits for the company. So I think what we're going to see down the road is Musk is going to have a harder time continuing like with full self-driving technology, say we go 5 years and he's not able to really push that forward and come out with a really well-working model. At some point, shareholders are going to get tired of dumping money into that. So right now, the automotive part of it, yes, they're losing market share, but it's still profitable. It drives the biggest part of revenues for the company. That's where shareholders are going to be looking. Whereas I think Elon Musk's passion is to other parts of the company that maybe are costing money more than anything. So that makes a point of friction within the company. Does Tesla want to pursue the bleeding edge technological stuff that needs never-ending shareholder input and new share sales to finance? Or do they really want to embrace the automotive sector that's already making money and that they're doing reasonably well on? And it's an open question. What does Tesla want to be? So that leaves the question, where is Tesla, the automotive company, likely to end up? And it's a tough one to answer because you've got a company that the single biggest thing they do is cars, but the single biggest guy in the company I don't really think is that interested in the cars anymore. He's interested in all these other sectors. So when we look around at the world at other niche players, traditionally in the automotive sector, what happens to small niche players is they get bought up by somebody bigger who's got more resources to continue that company on. And there's lots of examples of this. Think of Fiat, Renault, Jaguar, Lamborghini. They all used to be independent car companies. They used to make their own products. They got bought up by much bigger organizations. So is it possible that the automotive division at Tesla could be sold at some point for a profit? To be absorbed into another company? I don't think the chance of that is zero. It might not be the most likely thing, but there's certainly a possibility. If somebody came along and made an offer that was good for the company, the shareholders might not want to say no to that. Another probably more likely thing is I think the automotive division could get spun off into a separate company, and here's why I think that makes sense. Because Tesla Automotive is now a mature business, as I've said a million times, not leading edge, it's kind of the boring manufacturing thing. I could totally see that being shaved off from Tesla, having a separate company formed for just the automotive business under leadership that is much more attuned to running a boring manufacturing business. Like that is what they need. They don't need, Tesla at this point I don't think needs Elon Musk because they can't really take advantage of that desire to be on the cutting edge. What they really need is now people to take Tesla and say, look, this is a mature business. We have to keep on manufacturing. We have to cut costs. We have to bring the price of the product down. We have to make sure it's competitive with Ford, with Volkswagen, with Toyota, and with others. And we have to now act like a fully mature, full-fledged automotive manufacturing company. So spinning it off into a separate entity, that might make some sense. I think it makes a ton of sense. But either way, I don't think the automotive division at Tesla is ever going to just disappear, at least not anytime in the foreseeable future. I think some people who have decided they don't like Elon Musk, they're kind of banging the drum that, hey, you know, Tesla, their market share is dipping. Nobody likes Elon Musk. Nobody likes Tesla. Now they're going to go off into the sunset. I just don't think that's the case. Tesla cars are a good product. They're a solid product. They have a place in the marketplace. They still have a loyal fan base, even though that fan base is apparently smaller than it was. I just think it's transitioning into being a boring, mature business and maybe not a fit to stay within the larger Tesla organization at this point in time. But I think certainly with some work, with maybe some reorganization, with a focus on being a successful car company as opposed to always trying to drive new technology now, I think they could definitely have a good business, a solid business, and a long and prosperous future in the automotive industry. But they have to play the cards right. They have to make the products that people want. They need to refresh their lineup because the Tesla lineup is getting really, really stale. I think we can all acknowledge that. They're not, refreshing their vehicles as often as most manufacturers do. So it's kind of time for them to start thinking like a full-grown automotive company. With all that being said, what are your thoughts? Where do you see Tesla going in the future? Do you think it still belongs in Tesla? Or do you think maybe it would be better off on its own now? It is, like I say, by far the biggest part of the company. What value do you see Elon Musk bringing to Tesla going forward? And do you agree with me that Elon Musk has kind of lost interest in the automotive side of things and his attention is focused elsewhere? Or do you think that he's all in and he's still hard charging to make Tesla Automotive a successful division? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Put your comments down below. I try to get back to each one that I see. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.